Hi, this is Tim Meyer from Keep Yourself Relevant. Thanks again for joining. Today is a continuation of a series of videos that I put together or will be putting together for a book that I read a number of years ago, which I continue to use mostly on a daily basis. And that's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen Covey. Today we'll be covering habit number 3, which is put first things first. Want to spend a little time talking about the overall framework for the 7 habits of highly effective people. We start on the bottom here where we have dependence, and through the growth and development of habits number 1, 2, and 3, which are all things that are under our own personal control, we move on into independence. And then through the development and growth of habits 4, 5, and 6, we start to be able to manage and help things and that we have influence on so we can grow then to interdependence. And this is the overall framework for the 7 habits. In order to accomplish and complete and grow in one of the habits, there's 3 components that are needed. Knowledge, which is the what to and why to. The skill is another component, which is the how to. And the third component is the desire or want to. And where the 3 overlap is where we have the growth and development of our habits. Habit number 3, put things first. I like this quote. Things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter least, by Covey. So this is a quote that is reinforces the concept of habit number 3, which will be focusing on becoming more effective as an individual. When we look at habit number 3 in respect of habits number 1 and 2, which we've previously covered, in habit number 1, which is be proactive, we focused on making sure you're aware and you're the creator of your own destination. And habit number 2, begin with the end in mind, is kind of looking at you deciding which way you're going to grow and develop your own set of skills. And then we talked a little bit about in habits number 1 and 2, where you need to be looking at those from the perspective of your own personal view and not be so worried about the time management and effectiveness and management of your habits. Where in habit number 3, we're going to be focusing on how you can develop and grow by utilizing time management. And again, with habits number 1, 2, and 3, those are all under your control. And so we move on into time management and the maturation. And this will give us a feel for how over time people have started to look at how you can become more effective in being able to do your job. So the first level was people started to take notes and made a checklist. The next evolution of managing time, and this goes back centuries, was people started to look at calendars and appointment books. And you probably all remember when we used those a number of years ago. There was a calendar and appointment book where you put everything in and documented that in a planner, they called it. Then we moved on into prioritization and values, which is kind of the third level. And then today we'll be talking about the time management matrix, which is really one of Stephen Covey's main items that he found in the research that he's done, and how you become more effective in managing your time and becoming more effective overall as a person. It talks a little bit about this time management matrix and the concept that you have items that are urgent and not urgent. You have items that are important and not important. And this 2x2 matrix will help you understand what you need to be aware of as you move forward with managing your time. You want to be aware of those items that are urgent and important. And so we look at those, and those activities are going to be crises or pressing problems, deadline-driven process. And then you also want to look at important but not urgent. That's the next level of managing your time, the prevention and making sure you're building your relationships, recognizing new opportunities, and planning and recreation. Then the not important but urgent might be trivia, busy work, some mail, some phone calls, time wasters, and pleasant activities. And then not urgent and not important interruptions on some calls, some mail, some reports, proximate and pressing matters, and popular activities. So we want to be aware that this matrix is key to being successful. And we want to focus in on the items that are urgent and important while not becoming overly concerned with that. So one of the things you need to be aware of, if all you focus on is the results of those items that are important and urgent, you're going to probably be feeling stress, burnout. You're going to not be able to manage crises, and you're always putting out fires. So you can see that in this case, we're emphasizing that if we were to look at this square, each of the squares should be equal in size, but you can see that now we've started to focus only on items that are important and urgent, and the results of that focus is these characteristics, which is long term not healthy for you, and you'd spend less time on quadrant 2, 4, and 3. So we want to then look at other people will focus on items that are urgent but not important. They'll have a short-term focus, maybe some crisis management. Uh, they'll see goals and plans as worthless. They'll feel victimized, out of control, shallow, or broken relationships if they only focus on quadrant 3. So again, we want to make sure that we're building and eventually getting a blended look at how to manage our time. So if we only spend time working on quadrants 3 and 4, which are not important and not necessarily urgent, he looks at that as being totally irresponsible, and you'll likely get fired from jobs, and you'll be dependent on others or institutions for basics. So again, this is not something that we want to do. So the model that he's suggesting that we look at is that we spend less, we again take our box, which would have been 4 by 4, we spend a little less time on the urgent and important items, and then focus more on quadrant 2, which is going to get us the results that we're looking for. So you want to spend more time on vision and perspective, balance, so that you aren't burnt out and don't like your job. It's going to take some discipline, control, and then you'll have fewer crises to manage by becoming more balanced and disciplined in your work. So remember when we talked about if all you do is spend time in this first quadrant, which is urgent and important, you'll get burnt out. So that's really one of the things that he focuses on that you want to be aware of not becoming. So as we move forward, we want to make sure again that we're moving items from quadrants 3 and 4 and spending our time in moving up towards the urgent items, and making sure we're focusing on expanding our growth in time in quadrant 2 and staying out of urgent and important, or spending less time on that, I guess. So in order to stay more focused on staying in quadrant 2, there's some characteristics that we want to emphasize. And the first is to learn to say no. You can't always do everything. So make sure that you're becoming aware of how to say no to others so that you can stay focused and balanced. Again, one of the strong criteria is the ability to stay balanced, coherent, so that you're making sure that everything that you're doing is in line with your overall goals and objectives. And then you want to make sure that you're staying focused on that. So you want to avoid spending all your time in quadrant 1 and spend more time in quadrant 2, which will influence your ability and grow on your skills to become more valuable for quadrant 1. So in order to accomplish that, you need to look at a couple of different things. For the long-term organizing, there's a couple components that you want to look at. Remember, we talked in habits number 1 and 2 about developing your own personal mission statement, and the roles that you will play in developing that mission statement, and then the goals that you have. Remember, we talked about in habit number 2 of making sure you're putting together your overall mission statement and a plan for completing that. And then in the short term, or the weekly organizing for putting things first, again, keeping in mind that you're focusing on your overall mission statement, then you want to spend more time each week looking at what are the roles that you're playing, what are the goals for this week, what are the plans, the schedule, and then one of the skills that you're going to need to develop is to be able to spend more time and focus on being able to delegate, especially if you're in a lead role, where you can delegate to others so that you don't become so burnt out. So again, if we look at in concluding this video, we're again focusing on putting things first, which is habit number 3. And so habits number 1, 2, and 3 all are something that you can control. Habits 3, 4, and 5 you have indirect control on, and then there's other items that you have no control on. So again, this is the overall framework, and I hope this video was helpful in understanding what the habit number 3 is within the 7 habits. So if you like this video, please consider giving it a like, and please consider subscribing. Thank you and have a good day. Bye.